he's tough. He takes a hell of a shot. I hit him with some shots that I know would have put down most guys, but he stood up there.
Duane Bobick was supposed to be boxing's next great American heavyweight champion. The college-educated boxer from Minnesota had an impressive amateur record and Olympic experience that made him the perfect candidate for professional success.
Inside left hand by Bobick, he follows with a combination.
Boxing promoters and media experts believed his technical skills and clean image would restore American dominance in the heavyweight division. Everyone expected Bobick to become the great white hope that American boxing desperately needed during the 1970s era. But professional boxing was completely different from amateur competition in ways that Bobick never understood or prepared for properly. The violence was more intense, the opponents were hungrier, and the mental pressure was unlike anything he had faced in college tournaments. His amateur success had not prepared him for fighters who wanted to seriously hurt him, rather than just win on points. Some opponents saw Bobick as a soft college boy who didn't belong in professional boxing's brutal environment. Others viewed him as a privileged fighter who had received opportunities without earning them through real hardship and struggle. The worst enemies wanted to destroy his reputation and prove that amateur credentials meant nothing in professional competition.
Holmes is still on his toes. He's really fighting now. Doing pretty good. He got a lot of stamina, still got a lot of strength. To me.
Bobick learned the hard way that college boxing success and professional heavyweight fighting were two completely different sports requiring different skills, mental toughness, and preparation methods. 6. Chuck Wepner. Starting at number 6 is Chuck Wepner, the tough working-class fighter from New Jersey, who represented everything that Bobick was not, but should have been as a professional heavyweight.
Head. The scumbag referee don't warn Wepner. Look at Wepner's.
Wepner had grown up poor and learned to fight on the streets before becoming a boxer. He was willing to take punishment and keep fighting no matter how badly he was hurt. His nickname was the Bayonne Bleeder because he bled in almost every fight but never gave up or quit. Bobick came from a comfortable middle-class family and went to college on a boxing scholarship. He had learned proper technique and good fundamentals in amateur boxing tournaments where safety was important, but he had never experienced the kind of brutal punishment that professional fighters like Wepner accepted as normal parts of their job. When they fought, Wepner showed Bobick what real toughness looked like in professional boxing. The blue-collar fighter absorbed everything Bobick could throw at him and kept coming forward looking for more action. Wepner's heart and determination exposed Bobick's mental weakness when facing someone who simply refused to be discouraged or intimidated. Bobick realized that all his college education and amateur trophies meant nothing against a fighter who had learned toughness through real-life experiences. Wepner represented the kind of authentic warrior spirit that Bobick had never developed, despite his technical advantages and superior amateur training. The working-class fighter proved that heart and determination were more important than education and amateur credentials in professional heavyweight competition. 5. Jerry Quarry. At number 5 is Jerry Quarry, the experienced veteran who gave Bobick his first real lesson about what professional heavyweight boxing was actually like compared to amateur competition.
That'll be the key. Half a minute to go.
Quarry had been fighting professionally for many years and knew every dirty trick and survival technique that separated experienced pros from amateur newcomers. He understood how to hurt opponents and make them uncomfortable in ways that amateur boxing rules never allowed. Bobick entered their fight, thinking his amateur technique and college boxing education would be enough to handle an aging veteran like Quarry. But the Irishman showed him that professional boxing was about much more than just technical skills and point scoring. Quarry used rough tactics, held when he wanted to rest, and threw punches that were designed to hurt rather than just score points with judges. The veteran fighter made Bobick realize that professional boxing was a completely different sport from amateur competition.
Jerry doesn't seem to be able to get away from that left jab. There's one that just grazes. Who knows what his problem is?
In amateur boxing, fighters tried to score points and win rounds through clean technique. Fighters tried to hurt each other and break down their opponents through sustained punishment and psychological pressure. Quarry's experience and ring wisdom overwhelmed Bobick's amateur fundamentals and college training. The veteran proved that years of professional experience and survival instincts were more valuable than amateur credentials and technical education when it came to succeeding in professional heavyweight competition against seasoned opposition. 4. Ron Lyle. Number 4 brings us Ron Lyle, the ex-convict heavyweight who brought a level of real violence and intimidation that completely terrified Bobick and showed him the dark side of professional boxing.
Quick jab. That's the quick right, please.
Lyle had spent years in prison where he learned that fighting was about survival and hurting people who threatened you. His background was completely different from anything Bobick had experienced in his comfortable college life and amateur boxing career. Lyle looked at Bobick and saw a soft college boy who had never faced real danger or genuine violence in his protected life. The ex-convict knew how to intimidate opponents before fights even started through psychological warfare and threatening behavior that made fighters scared and nervous. Bobick had never dealt with this kind of mental pressure in amateur tournaments where everyone was polite and respectful. The prison experience had taught Lyle that weakness would get you hurt or killed, so he had developed genuine toughness and survival instincts. He viewed boxing as a continuation of the violence he had experienced in prison, while Bobick still thought of it as a sport with rules and referees who would protect him from serious harm. When they faced each other, Lyle's intimidating presence and genuine capacity for violence overwhelmed Bobick's amateur-trained mind. The college-educated fighter realized he was facing someone who viewed boxing as life-or-death struggle rather than athletic competition, and his privileged background had not prepared him for opponents who brought real danger into the ring. 3. Ken Norton. At number 3 is Ken Norton, the methodical destroyer who systematically dismantled everything Bobick thought he knew about boxing technique and ring generalship. Norton was famous for breaking Muhammad Ali's jaw and possessed a unique fighting style that confused and frustrated opponents through awkward angles and relentless pressure.
Shouldn't allow himself to get on the ropes. Norton's too strong for this sort of thing.
His approach was scientifically brutal, designed to wear down fighters both physically and mentally over the course of a long fight. Bobick had studied Norton's style and thought his amateur fundamentals would help him solve the puzzle that had troubled so many professional fighters. But Norton brought a level of sustained punishment and ring intelligence that completely overwhelmed Bobick's college-trained boxing mind. The methodical heavyweight knew how to make every round increasingly difficult, applying pressure that accumulated like compound interest. Norton's systematic approach exposed Bobick's inability to adapt when his original game plan failed. In amateur boxing, fights were short enough that a good strategy could carry you through. But Norton specialized in making fights long, ugly wars of attrition where technique mattered less than heart and determination to absorb punishment while continuing to fight back.
As Foreman comes in and tries to hold up, Norton backs up. 9 seconds remaining in this round, the first round.
The devastating loss to Norton proved that Bobick's amateur success had actually worked against him in professional competition. His college education had taught him to rely on preparation and strategy, but Norton showed him that professional heavyweight boxing was about surviving chaos and continuing to fight when everything was going wrong and your original plan had completely fallen apart. 2. Ernie Shavers. At number 2 is Ernie Shavers, the devastating puncher whose raw power completely shattered Bobick's illusion that amateur boxing fundamentals could protect him from professional heavyweight violence. Shavers possessed arguably the hardest right hand in heavyweight history, a punch so destructive that it had dropped virtually every opponent he faced, including legendary champions like Muhammad Ali and Larry Holmes. His power was the kind of nightmare scenario that amateur boxers never had to worry about in college tournaments. Bobick entered their fight believing his superior technique and defensive skills would help him avoid Shavers' bombs while outboxing the heavy-handed slugger. His college coaches had taught him that good fundamentals always beat raw power. But Shavers represented a level of punching power that existed outside the boundaries of amateur competition, where headgear and protective rules prevented truly devastating knockouts. The encounter with Shavers became a terrifying education in professional boxing reality. One clean shot from the puncher's right hand could end any fight instantly, regardless of technical preparation or defensive positioning. Bobick discovered that all his amateur training meant nothing when facing someone who could render him unconscious with a single perfect punch. Shavers exposed the fundamental weakness in Bobick's professional boxing approach. His amateur background had taught him to rely on accumulating points and avoiding punishment, but professional heavyweight boxing was about surviving against opponents who possessed fight-ending power in both hands. The devastating puncher proved that in professional competition, one mistake against the wrong opponent could instantly destroy years of careful technical development and amateur championship credentials. 1. Joe Frazier. At number 1 is Joe Frazier, the relentless Philadelphia warrior who delivered the most brutal lesson of Bobick's career and proved once and for all that amateur boxing success meant absolutely nothing in professional heavyweight competition. Frazier was everything Bobick was not, a hungry street fighter who had clawed his way up from poverty through pure determination and an unbreakable will to win. He fought like his life depended on every punch.
And apparently he's continuing that way here in the 5th round. Look at these body shots.
Bobick thought his college education and clean amateur technique would be enough to handle the shorter, older Frazier. But Smokin' Joe brought a level of intensity and non-stop pressure that completely overwhelmed Bobick's prepared game plan. Frazier never stopped coming forward, throwing punches in combinations that amateur fighters never faced in college tournaments. The fight exposed every weakness in Bobick's professional boxing approach. While Bobick tried to box cleanly from the outside, Frazier bullied his way inside and turned the fight into a brutal war. The Philadelphia fighter's relentless body shots and crushing left hook broke down Bobick's will to continue fighting. This was not the polite, technical boxing that Bobick had learned in college. Frazier's devastating victory over Bobick became the defining moment that ended the great White Hope's career dreams. The former Olympic champion proved that heart, hunger, and street fighting instincts would always beat amateur credentials and college education in professional heavyweight boxing. Bobick realized too late that he had entered a world where his comfortable background and technical training meant nothing against fighters who had survived real hardship and developed genuine warrior spirits through years of struggle. Bobick's story shows that amateur success doesn't guarantee professional boxing greatness. His college background and technical skills couldn't overcome the heart and hunger of real fighters. If you enjoyed learning about boxing's biggest disappointments and surprising upsets, make sure to subscribe for more boxing stories that reveal the harsh realities behind the sport's biggest names.